All right, do it.
All right, we're going. Yeah.
Woo!
Hey, welcome. Listen, we don't edit this thing. I've already chowed it up, but we're going to keep going.
Perfect.
Yeah, this is
Get
episode
after it.
22, man, of Growing Resilience Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about free plants for everybody, plant propagation. I was just showing Todd that when I cue this up, well, first of all, we recorded in Zoom, and Zoom gives me an MP4, and then I convert it to MP3 and compress it a little bit so the file size is smaller, and then I just upload it. And we use Libsyn to do this, and I put an episode number, hash, pound sign episode number, then the name of the show, the episode. But iTunes wants me to put that in a little field, a little box, and I put that in there to put the 41 or the 42 in there, and then I have to list this thing as explicit, but we know it's not explicit. Like, there's no hardcore. Like, there's no. It's not explicit. It's PG-13.
Right.
There's language adults use,
Mhm.
but no penetration.
None.
Yeah, but iTunes doesn't have a place for me to say PG-13.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Well, we live in a world that lacks subtlety.
Yeah.
It's all or nothing. Which do you want?
But Mark Twain, Todd,
Uh-huh.
said that censorship is telling a man he can't eat steak because the baby can't chew it.
Man, that fella sure was full of a lot of good quotes.
Or something like that. Something
Yeah,
like
I like it.
that. We've had a few reviews of late. Thank you to the folks that have done that. I think that's a big help to us. I think seems
Thanks.
like it. It's awfully kind anyway.
Yeah, it is awfully kind. Appreciate it. Kind words are appreciated. Honest feedback. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to talk about free plants, plant propagation today. Gosh, we've already talked about this some, Todd, when we talk about getting our trays out and starting our seeds. We've already talked about it
Is that
some.
free?
That's propagation.
We have.
Well,
It is propagation. That's propagation from seed. So we've focused a lot on annuals and the growing of annual plants. So doing things from seed to transplanting them or direct seeding in the garden, and then there we go.
yeah.
But today's show is talking about the propagation of perennial plants. And this is a really important part to remember, I think, of anyone who wants to truly make, I'm always looking for a
Say
good
it.
word for
Say
this.
it.
Say, uh, to make their landscape, their land around them, to create a food. God, the language is so gross and detached. A food system. No, you want things to grow because, guys, that is killing me. You want things to grow because the plants provide something for you, for other creatures, for the soil, for all sorts of different reasons, from the practical to the aesthetic and the intangible and everything in between. Perennials are going to have to be the framework for a truly living, healthy landscape, because annuals every year get wiped out, right? And then you have to restart them. There's a lot of energy involved, and that's fine because these are also our food. Most of our food crops, not all, but most of our food crops are annuals. And what they're meant to do is produce a lot of calories, a lot of nutrition in a short period of time, and then be processed, put away, whatever it is. Now, a perennial, on the other hand, can withstand shocks and weather, which annuals can't. You put annuals out and it gets too hot, too cold, everybody dies, or they slow down or something like that. A perennial, on the other hand, because it's a much more rugged plant, because it's actually meant to live for a longer time, they can withstand more shifts in weather, frosts. You might lose some buds on, you might not have a good fruit harvest one year because you get a late frost, but it's not going to kill your tree. It is a different way of looking at your land. It's a much more long-term way of interacting with a place than growing an annual garden. You're not going to plant perennials inside a raised bed that you're just going to turn over year after year. When you make a decision to put a perennial on the ground, it's a long-term decision that you're making, and you're kind of stuck once it gets going, other than cutting it down. So I say all this is the lead in of this, and understanding of perennials are very, very important. I think we've done one or two shows talking about perennials. But now talking about how to get them, because any fool can hop online, pull out their credit card, and pay $3.7 million to have some bare roots or lightly potted perennials sent to their house. And frankly, that has been my approach for a long, long time.
I've done it. A
I
whole
am,
lot of it.
yeah. I mean, I didn't have the time and I didn't have the skill. And these plants have to come from somewhere. If you're going to do cuttings. And getting into the show, I will throw out my own personal disclaimer. I'm really good at growing annual vegetables. I'm really good at pruning trees. I'm really good at caring for things and transplanting and all that stuff. But propagating from hardwood is very new for me. I'm finally at that point where I can start to take in new skill sets that I've been able to put on the back burner, say, now I need to learn other things and get really good at them first before I come to this. And you, Scott, have actually inspired me with this, with your crazy man approach to starting your own nursery has been fantastic. Yeah, it's like, well, this is great. Well, I mean, heck, you just started doing this, doing perennials, and all of a sudden you've got thousands of them going. So I'm like, well, hell, I could probably do this too. So thanks for the inspiration. And you, sir, know more about this than I do.
Yeah, I do. Maybe, but not very much. I did what you talked about. I got my credit card out and ordered a bunch of trees and a bunch of plants, perennials, 3 years ago, and put them in the ground. Several varieties of pecans, pears, peaches, apples, cherries, figs, grapes, blackberries, elderberries, and spent $3.2 million on it or something. I don't know, a lot of money. It doesn't take long to do that, to spend a lot of money on those things. But I wanted more than I have. And I would like to, I was looking at grapes, and I thought, gosh, I'd really like to have 20, 40, 50 vines. I'd like to have 50, 100 thornless blackberry brambles going. And it's nothing to pay $15 to $25, for example, for a triple crown blackberry whip, essentially, which is going to be just a stick with bare roots on it, and that stick is going to be 12 inches long. It's nothing to spend $15 to $25 on that. Well, I'm not going to. I don't have the money to be doing that. So, I'm like, I want to learn how to propagate these, and I've been making a study of that. We already said, one way to propagate these things is through seed. There are all kinds of perennials that it's really best to do it by seed. I've got rhubarb starts going in the greenhouse. You can propagate those by taking existing crowns and dividing them and get them going. But I'm getting those going by seed because I don't have any crowns either.
No kidding. You're doing rhubarb from seed?
Yep.
Cool. I didn't know that. I thought you were doing crown cuttings. I mean, that reminds me, there's a big old rhubarb plant on the farm that I need to go divide that crown up. It's just starting to get the little red nubs are just starting to poke out. Kind of looks like a dog wiener.
Yeah.
And that's
E for explicit. Yeah, it's
oh, shoot.
Yeah, Victoria rhubarb. I didn't have any crowns. I actually don't have the bed ready yet. So I thought, hell with it, I'll spend a few dollars on a packet of 100 seeds instead of, $25 for 3 crowns or whatever it is at your favorite nursery. A lot of plants are very difficult to propagate because they require crazy rootstocks, and you need to do some grafting. Apples are going to be like this, for example. Some grapes are going to be this way, but a whole bunch of stuff is just pretty darn easy to propagate if you're just attentive and don't drop any balls. Blackberries, the rubus family, RUBUS, blackberries, raspberries, easy peasy, man. They're basically weeds.
Right. They want to go. Most things really want to go.
They want to go. So the problem becomes with rubus and sambucus, which are the elderberries, same kind of situation. It's just making sure you got the right stuff at the right time. there are a couple ways. We'll talk about blackberries or rubus first. You can do one of the most popular ways to do this is different layering methods. You can do tip layering. You take a blackberry cane, you bend that thing over, and you bury the 6 inches of the end of it in a pot or even just in the ground, and it'll root. And then later on, you can come back and cut that thing off and then transplant it, and you've got a standalone plant.
Directly into the pot is really smart.
Directly into the pot's really smart, unless the soil temperature's too hot because you're in Oklahoma. But
Well, you could make a nest of straw around it, or some sort of mulch to protect them. But it is if it's in the shade, anything like that. But boy, the fact you don't have to disturb, sorry about jumping in here, but it's just such a great idea because you can go straight into a pot. At the end of the season, the plant goes dormant. You cut it off, and there's no disturbing of the roots. And then come spring, that plant is ready to go right out into wherever your plan was. It's brilliant. I love it. And not disturbing root systems is really, really handy. Plants hate that. Even tough perennials, they don't like having their roots bungled about. And if you can cut down on that, and it's only one time is it being moved from one spot to another, plants can be awfully happy about that. It could mean, many weeks or months of extra growth that you get out of a season because the plant's not dealing with the stress of being transplanted.
Yeah, it's a big jump start. Yeah, because you don't have that shock of the repotting or transplanting. So last year, I've talked to you on the phone. I can't remember how many I did. I think I tip layered. I think I had 30.
Mm-hmm.
Not one of them took.
Yeah.
Because I messed up.
What'd you do?
I tip layered the Floricane.
Oh, I was gonna say I'm like wrong year cane.
Right. So rubus, your blackberries, your raspberries, most of them are what they call Floricane fruiting plants. Year one, it puts up a cane that's called the primocane. The second year, the primocanes are now the Floricane. They become more woody. They don't grow a whole lot the second year. They will grow a little bit. They certainly leaf out again, but they put on fruit. If you try to tip root the Floricane, it won't work. You tip root the primocane, and that thing will go like crazy.
That makes sense. All that growth hormone is in the tip, the growing active tip, just like all perennials, right? All plants, but in particular perennials. The king bud, for instance, on any kind of woody perennial, that growth hormone will get concentrated in the tip, and that's where things are growing. So if you take something like that primocane and all that growth hormone is in the tip of that, because that's the part of the plant that's like we're gonna grow. We're not gonna grow leaves or fruit, but we're gonna go out and get bigger. You stick that thing in the ground, makes perfect sense. Like, oh, I guess we're roots now, and it'll just shift.
Yeah, that's an important observation to make. Trees, nothing grows from the base.
No, it does not.
It grows
like your hair.
Yeah, it grows from the end, like your hair.
Right? Yeah. Your hair grows from the tip.
It's not true.
That's not.
Yeah. So that catching that primocane, you can tip layer it. You can also do hardwood cuttings. You can just take a cane, cut that thing in 6, 8, 10 inch long sections, dip it in your favorite rooting hormone. Todd's a dirty hippie. He like masticates some willow bark and spits it in a bucket, and then a little deer urine, and he mixes that up, and then he uses that. I use a liquid. I use a liquid rooting hormone. It's easy to get, easy to mix up. There are powdered ones. I don't like the powdered ones because when I do these cuttings, I do hundreds. I'm not doing 3. If you're doing powder, if you're doing 3, 4, 10, 12, the powder is not a big deal. It's easy to use. That's fine. But if you're going to do 100, it sucks. So I really like a liquid. So, Todd's willow potion works well for this. And then, any liquid rooting hormone that you can find out there is going to be better. You can just mix it up. You put all your cuttings in the little cup or bucket that you've got it in, and then you're just sticking them and moving, and easy peasy.
How long do you let your soak? Overnight?
Oh no, no, I cut them.
Hour?
I cut them. I put them in the bucket. Go to my propagation bed and stick them.
Blam.
Yeah,
How's your success rate been so far like that? Is it
real.
far enough in the season to see what things are doing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
real good. Yeah,
Like
very.
what 75, 80, 85, 90?
Depends on what it is, but for like grapes, elderberries, it's 95.
Well, pretty
Um,
good.
yeah. So for some of the ornamental things I'm doing, lesser. Maybe
Sure.
70, something like that for those
Seven
things.
out of 10 still awfully good.
Yeah.
Those are good odds.
Yeah. So now your hardwood cuttings really need to be stuck when the thing's dormant.
Hmm.
It doesn't have to be, but for best success, for best luck, you're really better off to stick them. I say stick them. Put them in whatever medium you're using um, when they're dormant.
Yes.
Now, I have a propagation daddy mentor, and he says, go out there in the snow and stick them in your bed. They're going to be fine. Don't worry about it. He's in
Yep.
zone
They're dormant
5.
at that
He's
point.
like, no, no, man, just stick them in the snow. It doesn't matter. And you think, how can this be? This cannot be. Yep, it be.
Hmm.
It be for sure. Um, yeah, I use Hydrofarm Dip and Grow. That's the one I use. I couldn't remember what it's called.
My willow technique is a bunch of fresh willow cuttings. You can smash them with a hammer, or you can cut them up into 1 inch size pieces. Some people say pour boiling water over it. I got to admit, and I don't care if you make fun of me, the idea of pouring over a still living plant, I don't know. I don't like the feel of it. I use cold water, let
Well,
it
how do you
steep
feel
for.
about cooking lobsters?
I don't.
Oh,
Eating bugs is gross, and especially marine bugs. And I don't live anywhere near lobster waters. Yeah, and cooking an animal when it's alive, I don't know, not my thing.
yeah.
I remember as a kid, I actually bought a lobster, saved my money for a long time, and went to a special store that had it. I was homesick, and I was like, I'm going to cook a lobster. And I was
Hmm.
standing next to the stove in my pajamas up on a step stool so I could get to the boiling pot of water. My mom's like, all right, have at it. And I had like, who knows how long I'd saved my allowance for this lobster. I looked in the box and I was looking at its little black beady eyes. And I'm like, I can't drop this guy in boiling water. That's wrong. So I pulled the steel out of the knife block and smashed him in the head. Then I dropped him in the water.
There you go. No, I
Yeah,
dig it. I'm with you.
yeah.
And boiling water, maybe you're trying to extract a chemical substance from this willow.
Mm-hmm. You
It's
are. I can't
you
remember what
know
it's called though.
is it going to be denaturing it? The temperature. This is going to be a protein, and it's going to be proteinaceous. This
Right.
probably. And are you going to denature it? Are you going to change the shape and form of that chemical? Maybe, I don't know. But you have luck with it anyway, right? You
It works great.
macerate, you
Yep.
beat up your willow, and
Yeah, you can smash it, cut it up small, put it in a jar. I don't remember what it is, like maybe a couple cups of willow. Take a mason jar, take a handful of fresh willow ends that are the freshly growing stuff, not further down the tree, um, and cut them. Smash the part that's going to be in the water, shove them in the jar, fill it full of water, let it sit overnight, take the willow out. Voila, willow water. And apparently you can keep that stuff for a long time. I've never kept it more than a few days, but as soon as I make more cuttings, I put it in a bigger bucket and the cuttings just go in the bucket. The next day, all those cuttings come out. I'll let them soak a full overnight. So they're nice and wet going into the ground. And then the next day I replace another, put another 100 in there and away you go. Works great.
those
It's like magic.
those rooting hormones.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's two main ones. I haven't done a lot of diving in on this, but they're auxins, AUXIN,
Mm-hmm.
and willows are some of the easiest things to root that there are from hardwood cuttings, or particularly softwood cuttings. They're just loaded with auxins, so it makes sense that you can mash up a softwood willow cutting and extract that chemical, and then take a fresh cutting, put it in a bath of this willow solution, and by capillary action, it's going to pull those auxins up into the plant, which is going to stimulate that rooting.
Mm-hmm.
I use Dip and Grow.
And
And
that the rooting quality of willow too. Cool little observation in nature. Beavers, for instance, willow is one of their favorite things to eat. And when a dam is no longer, essentially when the beavers move on or die out, that dam will load up with all sorts of plants almost immediately. It's full of willow, and willow will come out of the dam and everything else. So it actually helps in an environment that can help other plants to actually establish roots and start growing in areas that have been disturbed.
And
Pretty neat.
These beaver, they eat willow, and if they stand still, they will root.
Yep,
I don't know.
that's why they have to stay busy.
Yeah.
That's why they're always moving. They hold still, they're in deep trouble. You have any willow beaver bushes?
Very little.
No.
Very little. Yeah. Willow.
Yeah.
So there's your hardwood cuttings. You cut them. You want 2 or 3 nodes on a cutting. I like 3 or more. It just depends on how much material you have, but I like 3 or more, and I like to put 2 in my medium. Blackberries and elderberries, people debate about this, but a lot of people say that they root better upside down, the cuttings. And some people say it doesn't make a difference. There aren't very many people say that they need to be right side up.
Curious.
This is rubus. Now, if you talk about grapes, grapes need to be right side up. We'll talk about grapes here. What is it? Vita? I can't remember their family. They need to be right side up. But your blackberries, they don't necessarily have to be. So I like my cuttings to be 3 nodes, and I like to put 2 in the rooting medium. Todd, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, you'd frozen. You'd frozen there.
Oh, whew, I'm back.
Yeah.
And one little pro tip too, I've seen is a lot of people, for making sure that the sticks are or your cuttings are oriented properly, is a flat cutting across the bottom and an angled cutting at the top. And that way, when you get to it, if you can't really tell if the buds are really, really small or they haven't started to show yet, and you're like, oh crud, is that right side up? Put the angled side up.
Yeah.
And that's a nice way to remind yourself.
That's the way I do my grapes. But I don't think it doesn't matter that much on the blackberries. But that's a hardwood cutting. So you're going to stick those things when it's dormant. You're going to do it, after the leaves are off. You're going to do it before, I don't know, you're going to do it 5 weeks, 4, 5, 6 weeks before your last frost, probably. Get those things stuck. And you'll find that they'll leaf out when the ones in the ground leaf out.
Weird, huh?
Yeah. Don't touch them.
No.
Now, don't touch them. They need to be in their medium, whether it's tip layered or sand. Well, we'll talk about medium in a little bit. Or whether it's tip layered or a hardwood cutting, you've got to leave them in there until they're dormant again. Some people would argue with me, but if you want the highest success rate, just don't be in a hurry. You're going to cut them you're going to stick them in the winter. You're going to cut them in the fall. Cut your tip layer loose and move it. You're going to pull your stuff out of your propagation bed and pot it up in the fall. So it's going to take a little while. But, you got a cutting. It costs you maybe a dime, probably nothing. In the course of 12 months, you're going to get a plant that the retail value of would be somewhere between $10 and $30.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's the hardwood cutting. I am sticking my hardwood cuttings into coarse sand.
Pure coarse sand?
Pure coarse sand.
Okay. And you're watering once a day? Twice a day when it gets hot?
I haven't watered anything yet.
What?
Yep. So I have cuttings that are in coarse sand beds outside, and I have some in tubs on bottom heat in my greenhouse. The ones in the greenhouse, I'll water when I think about it.
Mm-hmm. Holes drilled in the tubs?
Holes drilled in the tubs. Well, what they are is they're just plastic dishwashing basins from Dollar General. Just the cheapest piece of shit imaginable. They're about 8 inches deep. I drill holes in it with my little cordless drill till I think it's fine. No big deal. not science. I throw some screen wire on the bottom of it because I just don't want it to make a mess in the greenhouse, and I fill it with sand. And then I stick my cuttings in it.
This sounds entirely too easy.
It's that easy. My outdoors, my propagation beds are made out of two by eights or 2x10s, whatever I had laying around. I don't think a 2x6 is good enough.
Too shallow.
It's too shallow. My grape cuttings, if I want to we'll talk about grape cuttings here in a minute. If I want to put 2 nodes in the ground of grape cuttings, some of them, like my golden muscat grape, the internodal distance is very great. It could be 6 inches or maybe 7 inches. So if I want to put 2 nodes of that in the ground, I need 8 inches of sand.
Oh.
So I say a 2x8 or 2x10. So I just have 4 foot by 4 foot square made by screwing 2x8s or 2x10s together. I have Petromat, geotextile cloth. I set them on top of that.
That's he uses Geotex for the bottom?
Yeah, because that's what I've got. I have a giant roll of geotextile a guy gave me, so that's what I use. That's what I have.
And that is durable material. Holy moly.
Yeah.
It's also about $40 a square foot if you want to buy it.
Yeah.
If you haven't laid around super, if you're looking for something else.
I got some through the Redneck Network, and so that's what I use. Hell, you could put it on 20 thicknesses of cardboard. You can put it on. You need to do something to, around here, you need to put it on something to try to keep the Bermuda grass from coming up through it. Quack grass where Todd is, whatever.
But it does have to be permeable to gas and water.
That's right.
That's the important part. So don't put it over like a sheet of plastic or something like that.
Your propagation bed, whether it's in one of these Dollar General tubs or if it's, sitting on the ground, like my big 4x4 beds that have literally 1,200 cuttings per bed in them, needs to be well drained. Now, there are some people that are going to be sticking their cuttings in a well draining potting soil. I find that works fine for me for like elderberries, but I don't have as much luck with blackberries, and I don't have any luck with anything else at all, hardly. It's too rich, and here in Oklahoma, there's just too much food for fungi and bacteria in there, and I think it accelerates the decomposition process for my hardwood cutting. Also, I don't know if this is true, but I believe that the dearth of nutrient in the propagation material makes the thing make more roots.
The roots have to go looking.
The plant is looking for nutrients, and there's very little to be had there. And so I think a very neutral medium is best. So, of course, sand, perlite, something like this. Perlite, I'm not going to use that outside. It's going to blow away. But in your inside prop beds, maybe that would be good. So I'm sticking my hardwood cuttings in there. Your rubus plants, you can also do softwood cuttings. The ends of all your branches, when they come out in the spring, there's going to be 3, 4, 6, 8 inches of brand new floppy, tender growth on the end of that thing. And that is full of those hormones, these growth hormones, and it wants to root. But they also want to wilt. The time in Oklahoma to be sticking your softwood cuttings is late May, early June. They're a boogaroo, though, for rubus. They need to be under intermittent mist. If you keep them too wet, they're going to rot. And if you let them dry out once, they're done.
Be like little plant life support for a while.
So mine are under misters that run 10 seconds every 10 minutes.
It's a high-tech solution.
And
or do you go out there every 10 minutes and stand there for 10 seconds?
Yeah. 2:30 in the morning. Sorry, honey.
Exactly. Just jump up, run out there.
Yeah, I got a little timer there, and got a little timer, and it's got a little solenoid, and It's not expensive to do.
Mhm.
It is high tech, but it is not expensive to do, and it's not complicated either.
Mhm.
You're going to have a 1/4 inch water line to it. You don't need a lot of volume. You need a misting head that puts out a flat fan of mist. I just so happen to have some misters that do a good job of covering my 4x4 bed. And I haven't even calculated what the water usage would be, but I don't even think it would show up on your water meter. It can't be more than a few gallons a month. 10
Right.
seconds of fine mist at 32 inches high every 10 minutes. I mean, it's just no water. But they want to root. They want to leap up out of the ground. Where do you get your cuttings though, Todd?
Well, that's why you spent the $3.2 million originally and
Yeah.
established plants. I mean, that's why I'm excited about doing this now, is I have all these plants I've been growing for a long time. Some of them I brought with me from parts of them from the forest and had done cuttings from that. Others I've just planted since I've been out here. And I've seen who's done well. There's a history on these plants. And my big motivation this year was that I had some mature, delightful perennial shrubs that got their butts handed to them by our heavy snowfall this winter, especially that first one, and it broke them.
Yeah.
Bent a lot of things down to the ground, busted limbs off, and of course the plant's still dormant. So all that new growth that was on there, it was still fine. So I thought, well, heck, I might as well get in and see if I can't save these plants that, in some way at least create some new generations off of the parent plant might not survive. But so for instance, I take a female sea buckthorn, a Vitaminia variety, which is giant and highly productive with thorns that could stop a mammoth from eating it. Oh man. Other than that, they're great. Unbelievably tough plants. She got bent over and laid down. She's on a hillside too. It's like, I don't know, 35-degree slope. And she got laid down. So she's on the slope now.
Mm.
So that was a pretty rough bend. So I've been propping her up with a prop stick. And I thought, well, I need to take a bunch of cuttings off of her. So I took probably 40 cuttings off of that one plant. And if I can even get a handful of them to go on, then fantastic. And yeah, it didn't cost me anything. And those plants now, if you want to buy sea buckthorn, my beloved sea buckthorn, I believe I've seen them anywhere from $30 to $50 per plant. And most of the nurseries that are really like worth their salt, they're already sold out.
I know folks. So yeah, you've got some plants, get some props off of them, some cuttings off of them. You got a friend that has some. Hey man,
Yep.
can I get a few sticks off that elderberry? Your
Sure.
uncle, whatever.
Native stuff. All the native
Stuff.
plants that grow around you that you see are doing really well that don't require any work. It could be, say, you've got Himalayan blackberries growing in the area and you feel like those are the really brambly, spiky ones. I mean, sure, there's good reason to be really hesitant about some plants that they might take over and become invasive. But on the other hand,
Yeah.
I don't know, something's going to grow there. You might as well have something useful growing. It doesn't, but around, I've got mock orange around here. You can go do cuttings from that, Saskatoon, cuttings from that, native growing elderberry. I know these plants want to go here. They have good genetics to grow in this environment. So take cuttings from the plants that are already in the environment, propagate them, see what happens. And next year, I'm going to have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, actually, probably at the rate I'm going at, thousands of plants to pot up. And voila, yours, it's, you're going to be elbow deep in potting mix come this fall. Yeah.
I know some guys that'll go to the garden center and find damaged plants, and they buy the damaged plants. They're like, hey, can I give you $6 for this instead of 18 or whatever? And they take it home and cut it completely up.
That's a great idea.
They'll pay for $12 for a plant, get 15 cuttings off of it, and then do root cuttings.
And then the next year, sell them all for $12 a piece.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's something that you need to consider. Like, if you're saying, okay, I would like to have triple crown blackberries in the ground. I'm going to buy 3. I'm going to grow them out this year. I'm going to tip layer. So I probably want to maybe I can get 6 tip layers off of 6 primocanes off of 3 brand new plants, perhaps. and then next year I'll take some more cuttings. Well, what if you just bought those 3 and you just cut them completely up like day one, and you took 4 cuttings each, and then you did 3, 4, 8, 10 even root cuttings from that little baby plant. You might just get the jump that way.
Yep.
That's the other propagation method for rubus, would be taking root cuttings. They sucker often. You can dig up those suckers and put them where you want them. You can dig up those suckers and pot them and sell them, transplant them, whatever. I took a great number of Apache and Arapaho thornless blackberry root cuttings this winter. I was down there in February. I measured off about 18 inches from the plants, and I got down there on my hands and knees with a garden trowel and dug up all the roots I could find that were 18 inches or more from the base of the plant. So I was being cautious to not get too close to the crown and damage it. I found innumerable roots that were number 2 pencil size diameter. You'd find them, cut it neatly and cleanly. I even painted them with a little rooting hormone
On either end.
on the plant end.
Okay, got it.
So I cut it with my
lightsaber
and my plasma cutter, and then I painted it with a little rooting hormone on the plant end and covered them back up. So I'd cut that thing, I'd find it, cut it, pull it up. Hell, it might be 2.5, 3, 4 feet long. After I cut it, pulled that thing out of the ground, took it to the greenhouse, cut them in about 3-inch chunks, hit it with root hormone on either end, and put them in the medium.
Now, for those, did you lay them horizontally in the medium, or did you plant them vertically so one end miraculously turns into horizontally?
Yep, horizontally in the medium, and they're about 1 inch deep.
Okay, got it.
And those are just now starting to come up. They're going to be behind your hardwood cuttings. They're going to be behind your tip layers. They're going to be, they're going to be.
That's okay. This is a patient game. It's one of the things I really like about this propagation for perennials. I love the time scale on all of it. It's it feels like it changes one's perspective on the passage of time on the land you're living at. I've noticed just in my rush to get after it this year and start doing this and learning as fast as I can and learning as I go too. I've been cutting stuff and then quickly coming back and flipping through books and like, oh, right, this tool called YouTube, like type in, all right, what are these other people doing? Watch 30 minutes worth of videos, read. I've got a stack of propagation books, go through all those. I was like, oh, I could probably do it. I know a few people in the area that really know their stuff. If I have a question, I call them, they tell me, and like, off you go. It's not that hard. It does require attention, but I feel like I have a new relationship with these plants and the land that I'm living at. I'm looking at it differently. I'm looking at it on a different time scale, and also like in the now, and recognizing changes in these plants that I don't know if I was conscious of before. So it's been really curious because this is a place and these are plants I've known for a long time now. And it's like I get to see them in a whole new light.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
It's great. The thing I like about it, in addition to what you have said, is it's thrifty. I love it. It's so thrifty. You've got pennies or maybe nothing in these plants, which have a value of $10, $20, $40, $50. I love that. And I love how it inverts all the seasons. Propagation season is busy when it's cold, and you don't do anything when it's hot except keep things moist, which I can do with timers. I love that. This gardening when it's hot, this doing anything in August in Oklahoma can kiss my ass. And the propagation thing lets you be your most productive when it's cold. I'd much.
Is that kind of explicit?
Not unless we have pictures of it.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah, so I love that. Now, that there are, this isn't a real country that we live in. I mean, this is a clown state, oppressive place that we live in. And there are plants. Did you know that there are plants that are patented?
I did know that there are plants that are patented.
Did you know that if you own a patented plant, you can't propagate it without running afoul of the law?
Hmm. Actually, most of the corn, soybeans, canola seed, sugar beets, zucchini, yellow squash, mangoes, moving towards alfalfa now. Does that cover everyone to get all the big ones? Yeah, almost all those are the big ones are all patented.
Well, you're going to find that a lot of the things that you want, like you may say, I'd like some seedless grapes. And you
Mhm.
go to the garden center and you're looking at Hope and Joy uh, seedless grapes. And you buy a couple of those. They're patented, dude. You know, Apache and Arapaho, thornless blackberries, triple crown. They were once patented. University of Arkansas held the patents on Arapaho and Apache, but they have since lapsed, and you can do what you want to do. I don't remember who patented Triple Crown, but they're out of copyright. They're out of patent protection, and you can do what you need to do with those. But that's something to look for, and you can, if you just type in Google, is whatever, you know, family, genus, species, variety patented, you'll find out very quickly if it is or not. But you're not supposed to do that. So when you go to a nursery and you find a plant and it's in a pot that says Gurneys, and it's like got color pictures on it and stuff, and it says what the plant is on the pot, chances are that is a patented plant. A lot of the patented plants you can propagate them, but you have to pay a licensing fee to the patent holder. And often the way that you pay the licensing fee is by buying the official pots and pot sticks for
Uh-huh.
them.
Okay, I've got a question for you. Along this line. Uh, if you are buying, let me try that again. If you are trying to propagate uh, through either hardwood or softwood cutting, and the plant is a hybrid,
Mhm.
an F1 hybrid, does that change the rate of success versus a plant, a perennial that came from an open pollinated parent plant? Or does this only apply, or does this primarily apply in annual world? This
I
is one of
don't.
the reasons I use heirloom and open pollinated seed for all of my uh, annual vegetables. Is I want to be able to save seed, and when you get into F1 hybrids, you can. It's a little tricky, from what I understand. I've never tried to save seeds from an F1 hybrid, but open pollinated, like what it produces, is if you've controlled the pollination, it will be true to the parent plant.
If you're taking hardwood or softwood cuttings from an F1 hybrid, I'm not going to claim to know the definitive answer, but if I think through it based on what I know,
Mm-hmm.
it should propagate as readily as its cousins of the same
It's
genus.
true to the parent plant because it is the parent plant, then you're getting it
They're
from.
clones.
Right.
I have a friend that runs a pot farm,
Uh-huh. Which that
and,
industry
and
runs on clones.
all of that stuff is crazy, crazy, crazy hybrid. It's nothing like natural. All you dumb fucking pot hippies, there is nothing natural about the pot market. Nothing. It is just as wacky and forced as canola or anything you can think of. But he
It's
runs
almost like that was the reason to legalize it.
might be.
Mm.
Yeah, so he runs about 13 varietals, and if I think he runs 13, and they're all done from clones. They're all done from cuttings, softwood cuttings under mist in propagation chambers with humidity control. That's what they do,
Mm.
and that would be ideal for almost any softwood cutting that you would do, not just weed. But the stakes are high. The margins are big enough that he can go all in and get everything he needs: humidity control, temperature control, intermittent mist, everything. And
Ooh, I have another question for you. With softwood cuttings, is light important to them? Or because you said propagation chamber, and it made me think like, in the dark, or these lit propagation chambers? Because a prop chamber in annual world means dark and humid and
They
warm.
are lit.
Okay,
They
because
are
they do have
lit.
active living leaves, so you need to make sure they get light for chlorophyll production.
Their stems are not well developed.
Hmm.
The cell walls are not highly developed. There's not a lot of nutrition in that thing. It relies on its leaves to make carbohydrate to keep from dying. So you've
Right.
got to give them some light. The hardwood cuttings, you could do them in the dark until they sprouted.
Right.
Because the stems are full of carbohydrates and nutrition. They're living off themselves for until they get a root system going.
Hmm.
And you want them to make the roots. So I'm growing in neutral medium or sand.
And that 4x4 has been a good size for you to reach over and get out in the middle. You weren't doing like straining to because it's small enough around that since all the edges are only 4 feet.
It's a little bit of a stretch to get out there. I'll tell you,
Right.
it is, but it doesn't matter. Like you should never get out in the middle except for when you're sticking them and when you're
Right.
pulling them out.
Well, that's what I'm thinking about is the pulling out when you need to be a little more delicate. Well, a lot more delicate than just plucking them right out of the medium.
Well, I'm just going to be working from the edges and just clearing the whole darn thing out. Because when I've got 1,200 cuttings in there, I don't have 15 different varieties in there. There's two.
Right. Right.
So when it's time to pot them, I'm just going to start on one edge, and I could put and after I pull them out, I could put my knee in there or stand in it or whatever. It doesn't matter.
Sure. That's a good point. I
But
like that 4x4 too. It's a good use of lumber. Just buy an 8 foot dimensional, and then you don't have any scrap anywhere. Because like, why would you like cut it? And you're like, I need 4x3, and then you have a bunch of 1 foot sections of 2x10,
and if you're going
which
to do
cost $9 a foot.
and if you're going to do intermittent mist, what's the coverage going to be for your mister nozzles? That's
Right.
something you need to be thinking about.
Mm.
Yeah. So you got to watch for those patented plants.
Mm-hmm.
But there are
That's a good point.
plenty of heritage plants out there that are out of copyright protection, out of patent protection, that are hardy, tried and true, standbys that,
Mhm.
that will work for you, and you should be looking for those. So yeah, rubus.
Do the old varieties too, because what they've done is they've also proven themselves. These are the greats that are still around for a reason, for either robustness, quality of what the plant produces. It's probably a mix of all those different things. So if you go with like the new fangled one, it might do really well in a highly domesticated setting with a lot of care. But the old varieties that have been kicking about for 1, 2, 300 years, those are the ones that are probably going to grow with a lot less effort on your part, and those are the ones that are going to survive you know the strange cold snaps, the sizzling heat waves, whatever it happens to be, the droughts, the floods. Those are the ones that are going to make it. So again, starting there, you can get fancier later on, but I sure like the idea of heirlooms all the time. They've already proven themselves. I don't want someone who I don't want the Johnny come lately. I want the Johnny Appleseed variety.
And they're old friends. They've been
Yep.
taking care of humans for a long time, and if we don't protect them, they're going to go away. Some of these
Mm-hmm.
varieties, I don't know. I don't know enough to tell you which varieties are in danger. But there are old heirloom plants that are, that the commercial interest isn't there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I think that we need to be. I think we need to be going for these old timey plants when we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. So there's your rubus. We talked about those. So hardwood cuttings, stick them in the sand, stick them in the vermiculite when it's cold out. When they're dormant, they look dead. They're not dead. I mean, it's just an old brown stick. You're going to put 2 nodes in the ground. You can have one node above the ground, and you're just going to be patient. You're not going to dig them up and look and see if there are any roots. You're not going to do it. You're just going to let them sit there for 12 months, and you're going to make sure they don't dry out. There you go. And so
Yeah.
we're talking. That's rubus, but rubus is in the Rosaceae family.
Mm-hmm.
So you can actually go up a level in the phylogenetic tree, and you're going to be able to propagate most things that are Rhozoideae or Rosacea the same way.
And that's a big family of plants.
Big family of plants.
That's big. That includes apples, by the way. Malice is an apple, and they're in the rose family.
Yeah. And you can propagate fruit trees from hardwood cuttings.
You just don't
prunus,
know you're going to get hit.
prunus, your Fuji. You can, you can do it, but
Prunus is almonds, apricots, pit fruit, or
prunes
yeah, yeah,
or plums.
yeah.
Yeah, and you can do that, but some of them require a hardy rootstock.
Mhm.
Talk about them here some more later. But rosacea and rubus, you're going to be able to do whatever you want to. Hardwood cuttings, root cuttings, um, softwood cuttings, tip layering, serpentine layering, all those things. That's loganberries, boysenberries, raspberries, vetchberry, blackberry. I don't know.
Gooseberry,
I don't know that one.
yostaberry, currants.
Yeah.
Gooseberries I poke you. I wonder if they grow down around you. They look like a fat grape that sort of looks like a cartoony watermelon, and they have a little fuzzy tail on them like a currant does. And really spiky plants. And a strange fruit. They're quite common in Britain. They'll grow in colder areas too. Colder, wetter areas will.
Um,
Yeah.
Vitus, the grapes, same old, same old. Hardwood cuttings, softwood cuttings under mist. They do well with layering. If you want to bury some nodes,
Mhm.
so if you were to watch and find a few nodes on the bottom of the plant, let it put off a shoot next to the ground, and then bury every third node on that shoot, and then cut it loose in a year. You're going to get you some grape plants. There are grapes that have grafted rootstocks. We don't care about those. We're not trying to grow some French grape in California and have some wine or anything. We want good table grapes. We want good jams and jellies and juices. So we're not really worried about those things. But you can also do them from bud grafts and things like that. But that's too much work for me. Why would I jack around with that if I can cut a 12-inch piece of wood off of it, stick it in the sand to get a plant? I'm just not going to do that. Now, if I'm running a vineyard, if I'm a viticulturist, and when I'm doing
Right.
a deep dive on this, okay, but I'm not. I'm just trying to get cheap, hardy plants. So I'm sticking my hardwood cuttings in sand. They are blooming right now, April the
Mm.
3rd.
Well,
April the 4th. Yeah.
I'm
Doing
still
great.
doing cuttings right now. Everything is still dormant here.
Um, there are some folks. There are some folks that when they bud, will pot them up. I'm going to leave them in the sand. I'm just going to leave them in there. I'm going to leave them in there a year. It's going to be tough to keep them damp, but I'm going to do it.
So I have another question for you. What about peat moss as a growing medium mixed with sand and perlite? Because
I
you get
haven't.
better water retention with peat, and peat is, I mean, it's essentially humic acid and carbon.
Well,
Um,
I haven't tried it.
mhm,
I've only know what I've been told and what I've experienced so far.
Sure.
I believe that it would be very beneficial in Oklahoma through the end of June, all of July and August, all of August to have the peat moss, and it will be detrimental the rest of the time. My
Got it.
plants are going to have wet feet
Hmm.
all through the spring and all through the winter, probably. And you don't want that. It needs to be moist. The
Hmm.
cuts need to form a callus, and then it needs to have an opportunity to then create its roots. And
I have to interrupt you right there because that was an important point. The roots have to have a callus. You cut them and let them callus before you stick them in the ground
I
or
have
into the
not.
potting bed. Okay. Okay.
There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, if
Sure.
you've got time in the room, but I'm doing hundreds and hundreds. I mean, I've got I don't even know, man. I've got 5,000 cuttings out right now, and I'm trying to be very careful with labeling and making
Hmm.
sure I don't mix up any of my varieties. Because
Right.
if you mess up the labels, you're done. You don't know what the hell that stick is.
Right.
There's a little construction going on right outside the door. Yeah, so that's Vitus. I mean, that's most things. You're going to be able to take softwood cuttings in the late spring. You're probably going to have to put them under intermittent mist. You can do hardwood cuttings all through the winter. You need them in a well draining medium. and can't let them dry out. You need to leave them in there through the course of a year. Pull them when they're dormant.
So not necessarily a year. I mean, it's if you put them in the spring and then you pull them in the fall, it might be a 6 months. But you're saying they need a full growing season to root.
That's right. You
by
might
year,
stick it in March, and you might dig it in November.
Got it.
Yeah, it's fine. But you're not gonna do it as soon as you know that there are roots and that there are leaves.
Right.
There are some things that require bottom heat, like a lot of evergreens. I've got several hundred rosemary cuttings that are in sand on bottom heat. They're doing fine. Arborvitae, I've got those in there. I've got a lot of decorative plants and landscape type kind of plants in prop beds too.
Now, you're going to stick with doing that? I mean, you're doing that obviously for, I'm assuming, with commercial purposes in mind. Or are you going to start focusing more now that you've got your feet underneath you and you're starting to get your systems figured out? Are you going to stick more with useful food bearing plants? Or I should say, they don't have to be food bearing, but they could be useful plants. And I don't know, I suppose beauty, though. I mean, beauty certainly has a use in itself. So maybe that's not the right word.
To tell you the truth, I don't really know, Todd. I mean, I like the fruit bearing plants the most. I mean, I love to know that I'm propagating elderberry or blackberries or grapes or sand plums. You're talking about native plants. That's prunus. I've got hundreds of sand plum cuttings. I really like that, but I also know that people like the decorative plants, and I like them too. So we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, I've planted. I've got a great number of trees in seed trays. I've got about 3,000 in seed trays. I've got blue and green ash, Japanese green and red maples in seed trays, and they're just starting to germinate. There's all this baloney about stratifying them, putting them in the fridge, whatever. I planted all the ashes, which they say you need to stratify. I put them all in their seed trays and threw them out on the ground. Well, the seed trays out on the ground in February, they started.
That counts as that is stratifying.
Yeah, but all
that whole like putting things in the fridge. Just
hand wringing about that. No. You don't need to do
it. The plants, they're fine. If it requires you have to like take them and scratch at the seed, for instance, and then put them in your fridge for 6 months, like there's got to be an easier way because those plants grow just fine without humans doing that. So like, what are they doing? How do they do it? Just mimic that. Yeah, like that. Put them in a seed tray, leave them outside. They're like fine, stratified. See, they got cold.
Yep, that's what I've been doing, and they're just fine, just fine. Yeah, got hundreds and hundreds of those things, and we'll be potting those up when they get big enough to come out of their what are they in? They're in 48s. I picked up a bunch of cheap 48s a couple years.
I was like, not him. Like, wait, 48s, like about the 8 little 6-packs. Is that what you're doing? I mean, okay, yeah.
Up a bunch of those cheap, and
Singing Frog Farms is really fond of those little 6-packs. Those are some food growing geniuses too. And where are they? Mendocino County, I think, in California.
That's mostly what you're going to get if you go to the garden center and buy Celebrity or Jet Star tomatoes or whatever. That's what's going to be. And I just happen to have them. So I think I have 2,000. Yeah, and we'll see how they're just now starting to come up. We'll see what those germination rates are. And then we'll be potting those up. But you're going to find out that there's just a few methods that you're going to use. You're going to take hardwood cuttings and stick them in sand. You're going to do softwood cuttings in your sand. You're going to do chip layering or serpentine layering or something like this. You're going to divide like comfrey, rhubarb. You're going to divide. You're going to dig
horseradish.
You're going to cut that crown with your Japanese gardening knife. And you're going to plant it back, and off it goes. You're going to take root cuttings from these things, same thing. That's mostly what you're going to do. And as long as you keep things damp, but not over damp, they're going to come up. They want to live. Just need to make sure that they're well drained, but you give them the moisture and they'll do what they're supposed to do. I'm doing most of this on the ground. I have very, very little of it in the greenhouse. I have evergreen cuttings on bottom heat in the greenhouse, which for me is it's that rosemary variety. It'll come to me which one it is, and I've got green giant arborvitae in there, cuttings, and that's it. And everything else is just out on the ground. And I think that's the way it should be.
Yep, I like it.
They can't, we're not gonna have 110,000 square feet under hoop house or whatever, you just
You don't want those plants anyhow. I mean, this is part of it too. This makes me think of good old genius Mark Shepard and his STUN approach. STUN is an acronym for sheer total utter neglect. He is a very pragmatic permaculturist in Wisconsin, I believe. Lots of agroforestry and key lining. Those are his two big things. Check out key lining, everyone. You want to make a big influence on a landscape in short order, key lines. Anywho, he will put out thousands and thousands and thousands of plants that he's taken from cutting. Well, actually, I shouldn't say, I don't know where he's getting them from. I'm assuming he's doing cuttings off his own stuff. Get them rooted next year, just plant those suckers out and just let them go, and just he leaves them alone. And you will have high mortality that way, potentially. But it doesn't matter, because those who actually make it are the ones that you want to make it. It means they have traits that allow them to survive, and that is going to be the plant you want. If you have to baby the sucker all the way through its life, it's not a good match. And you need the one that's going to just go and wants to go, and encourage that one.
Yeah. Was it completely, utterly neglected trees?
Sheer total utter neglect.
Oh, different acronym.
Different acronym. Yeah. I caught that one. I was trying to be cool about it.
Yeah. Most of these,
that one works too.
Most of these hardwood trees are going to be from seed. You're not going to take your sawtooth oak or, whatever from cuttings, more than likely, because they grow readily from seed. And he's going to plant small. He's going to plant whips. He's going to plant 10-inch, 12-inch, 18-inch at the most whip plants. It's just a little seedling, just a tiny little plant, and he's going to plant them way over dense and set it and forget it, man. Which is good. Yeah, what are you gonna do? Tote water out in the woods for
right. And that way you just plant dense. And if you're going to do this at home, if you plant dense, especially if you're doing it this way, say from really young plants where you're getting, and essentially the plants are free. Now you're paying 15, 20, 40 bucks a plant, you're going to be careful with it, understandably. But if you're getting them for just your time, well, just nothing more precious than that, but you catch my point. You put them out in the ground and plant them densely, because if you do you will have mortality, and then so what? And then if it comes up a little too dense, you need to be comfortable with the idea of cutting down those that aren't working later on. It might turn out there's some, like, they're just too tight and you need to cut some plants down. They might turn out after 5-10 years, you're like, tree's kind of a stinker. It doesn't make sense anymore. Conditions have changed. You're just going to cut it down. When you get into this role of stewardship on a landscape, you're there, period. Once you start monkeying with things, you're as much a part of that system as the weather, the plants, the soil, anything else, and you need to remain a part of it. So this is something that, again, that relationship that position of stewardship is a permanent role for you, and just get comfortable with it. If this is the land you're going to live on and you're serious about it, boy, it's a pretty nice way to live, I think. You've muted yourself.
I muted
Hey, you're back.
All this noise. My wife's out here. We're enclosing our kitchen area finally, because 87-year-old grandpa is going to come live here, and he deserves a nice kitchen, and we don't. So now that we're getting ready to move out of this barn, we're gonna actually improve it and make it livable after living in it for 2.5 years. Yeah, I've got a bunch of plants. I got a bunch of plants that I'll be uh, able to sell probably in May, June. I've got
Of
purple.
this year.
Yeah, I've got purple leaf sand cherry. I've got all kinds of spireas,
Mm.
Weigela, red prince, carnival. I've got a bunch of Weigela,
I don't know what Weigela is. Is
hydrangeas.
that a nursery plant?
Yeah, yeah.
Ornamental. Okay.
Plant. Weigela. Got a number of those. Hydrangeas, lilacs, arborvitae, burning bush. Yeah, what else do I have here? I think I'll have a bunch of comfrey cuttings, or actually and all of these are in 2-quart pots, like
Sterile comfrey.
Huh? Yeah, Bocking 14.
Yeah, this is an important one for people don't know. If you use standard comfrey that is non-sterile, you could end up with a very serious problem with them moving around your place.
Yeah,
Any little niblets that gophers or mice, it's usually rodents, carry off bits of root, it will take immediately, and you could end up with a very serious comfrey issue. Oh, those are pretty plants.
yeah, those Weigela. I've got forsythias, hydrangeas. I think I already said that. Whole great number of these things. So if these are anything that you would be interested in, give me a call, or you can email. Or, you can email me, Scott@scotthambert.com, and say what you want.
Local pickup only.
I'll sell them. I'll ship bare roots.
Can you ship bare root?
Yeah, yeah. We don't live in a. Yeah. And I've got
Look at you maturing.
I live in. I've got a bunch of pin oak, sawtooth oak, white oak, black locust, eastern red buds, red mulberries, sand plums.
How'd you do your black locust? Seed or cuttings?
Seeds.
Yeah. Did you bang them up at all before you planted them? Nope, just straight seed. And what was your germination like? Pretty low?
Low, about
Or
half.
pretty low? Yeah.
About half. Yeah, but these are all like from certified seeds, so I can guarantee that they are the variety that I claim they are. So if anybody wants any of these things as bare roots, let me know. And most of the 2-quart pots are going to be $5.99. Most of them that are in 2-quart pots are going to be $5.99. A few things will be a little bit more, but I'll be glad to do that. And I'm going to have tons of fruit this time next year. So
Got it.
there'll be blackberries. I have York, Johns, and black elderberry, Apache, Triple Crown, Arapaho, blackberries, grapes. I have. Let me look. I have to look at my list here. Traminette, Concord, La Crescent. I have others. What do I? Where are my others? Where are my others? Muscat, Reliance. Yeah, those are my grape varieties. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm going to have hundreds of those. Yeah, this time next year.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so get to sticking.
Yeah, see, look at that. Again, nice motivation, Mr. Hambrick. Someone who just recently floating around in a saltwater pool and wearing a suit and sitting in an office all day, and you're turning yourself into a baby Luther Burbank.
Oh man.
Yeah, if anyone's looking for some fun plant reading, check that guy out. He was a plant propagating maniac. Hundreds of thousands of propagation, either hardwood seeds at a time. You if you want to figure out a variety of apples, you go plant 100,000 seeds. And now the palm family, apples and pears, both do this. The seeds are not true genetically to their parents. So you take an apple, and I think it has 5 seeds in it. I could be wrong. I think it's 5. Each one of those seeds is genetically unique. So you can plant all 5 of those, and you could end up with radically different trees. You might have a little stumpy one with hard green apples. You might have one that turns out to look like an oak tree with cantaloupe-sized green apples. You never have any idea. But you can, if you plant out hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands of those at a time, and then quickly select for prime varieties, you can come up with your own variety very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Then you have to graft them onto rootstock. But I mean, there you go. There's your scion wood is coming from those new varieties you're creating. Very cool.
Yeah, do it. Like, why not?
It's like magic, man. Plants are really different than mammals.
Yeah, it's just yeah, do it. When I first went out here and started digging holes for these trees, I'm like, oh my God, it's just gonna take forever. And I'm gonna start with these trees that I'm buying because I don't want to spend, $8,000 or whatever. I'm gonna start with these trees, and it's just gonna take forever. Well, you know what? It doesn't take forever. Get started and off you go. There are some places that if you're, that you can obtain hardwood cuttings and stuff, and then do your cuttings, sticker cuttings, and then I plan on starting. I don't know what to call this. I've got to come up with a slick name. A reference garden. I don't know.
That's pretty slick. I like
like Red Prince Weigela. I don't give a fuck about that plant. I mean, they're lovely, but I'm not a decorative plant guy at this point in my life. Maybe at some point I'll have a Zen garden and be out there raking gravel. And
hold on, let me sit with that image for a moment.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Move on.
But I need to take a number of these things and get them in the ground, and with the purpose of taking hardwood cuttings off of them, in February, March, January, February, March, every single year. So you can imagine that management of those plants would be much different than the management of the plant for a decorative purpose. So in the case of a spirea or the Weigela, if you're going to manage that plant for cuttings, you're going to prune it one way. If you're going to manage it for beauty, you're going to prune it another way. Prune it another way. If you're going to manage it for fruit production, you're going to prune it a third way. So I need to I haven't even figured out where I'm going to do it, but I need to cordon off an area, figure it all out, lay it all out, prep all the beds, and start putting, I'm going to call them reference plants or parent plants or source plants in. I need to have excellent labels, like durable, ever hard, perfect labels on every plant.
Aluminum tags. Have you seen those? The soft aluminum tags.
I bought 1.5 inch wide aluminum stock on a roll, and I cut it with tin snips and scratched it in there with a scribe. And then I was nailing them to a stake. Well, I now crimp it on a metal post.
There you go.
But I bet, that's something I'll be working on really hard probably next winter. By then I'll know where I want it and what the dimensions are going to be. And I would have put some stakes in the ground and kind of walked around it and tried to get a sense of it. But I've got to get that, because I don't want to be buying whips. I don't want to be buying cuttings. I don't want to be buying liner plants. I want to be on my own on that. So that's something I'll be doing. But these hardwood cuttings, just as natural as it could possibly be. Grow your grapes all year, harvest them, leaves fall off. Well, at some point you're going to get your ass out there after the frost and you're going to prune them, take all those prunings, take them back to the pot table or whatever, cut them up, put them in your rooting hormone and stick them. We're not going to put them in the compost heap. That's retarded. We're not going to burn them. Stick them in your pot bed and pot them up in another 8 months and sell them, give them away for Christmas presents. I mean, what are you going to, you're going to burn that stuff? you're gonna compost it? No.
You
Stick it
can
in the
barter it
garden
for
bed.
dental care in 2 years.
Right. Right. If nothing else, give them away.
Mhm.
There you go.
I like it. Look at you making the world a better place, one plant at a time. Oh, you're an idealist.
No, I know there are a lot of people who are going to listen to this show, and because they listen to it, they're going to feel like they did it, and they're not going to turn a tap. I know
Oh yeah,
exactly how it works.
that doesn't count.
No, it doesn't.
Don't let your brain trick you that way. It isn't the case until you can actually, just because you've thought about it and you've considered it, is not the same thing as doing it. Until you're actually taking that plant and putting it in the ground or handing it to someone else because you care about them or they are giving you something in return for it and you are having a free exchange, it did not happen. So don't fool yourself. You have to go do this stuff.
Yeah,
But the doing really is a whole lot of fun. I have to
I
admit, like
sure
this,
enjoy it.
I've had the best time just running around because I was able to start doing that right before I started getting really busy with everything else. I thought, well, hell, this is the time to go do it. And saving what feels like hopefully carrying on the genetics of those plants that I've been so happy with, where snow melted off on, oh man, that's too bad. That was really something. That was a those, it was a whole bunch of different plants. Wait a minute. Offspring. There's an idea.
Yeah.
Great piece of cake. And I filled up and in no time I had a whole bunch of them going. And hey, for anyone who pays attention to the biodynamic calendar, we just moved into we just left Aries, actually probably right about now, and the moon's moving into Taurus, and we are on a waning moon. No, wait, waxing moon. Waxing is going to be full in 3 days. So if you're doing anything above ground, we are in a root stage right now. And this would be a fine time for doing cuttings and getting them in the ground, or wait till the moon shifts, but you'll be fine.
It's the best work. I put on my belt where I got my Felco 6s and my Felco 320s in there.
Oh, you've got a dork belt with double dork holsters?
I'm a two-fisted propagating fiend.
Woo!
Yeah, man. And get out there and get it.
Keep a little leather pouch on there too for carrying various sundries and
Well, that's my overall self. Bullshit.
oh, got it.
But yeah, I carry
double
Lysol.
fisted, double fisted nursery,
Yeah,
two fisted nursery. There you go.
I got a milk crate that I put stuff in, and carry that around. And I've got a can of Lysol in there. Spray my
For what?
my
Tools?
pruning shears with.
You use Lysol on them?
Yeah.
Yeah. I use hydrogen peroxide in a spray bottle.
You should do. Yeah, Lysol. You could put a little alcohol in a spray bottle.
Some people use bleach, but that's hell on the metal. That oxidizer, you can like watch your tool rust in front of your eyes if you spray alcohol or bleach on it.
Yeah. So yeah, sterilize.
You do need to clean, but you do need to sterilize your stuff in between. You can spread disease between these plants, and that'd be a real shame to have that happen.
I just looked here. Traminette, one of the grapes I have. It's a Gewürztraminer.
Oh, I love the name Gewürztraminer. It's fun to say.
Little old shitty plants, $12. I say shitty. I mean,
Really?
like this year's plant, right? Somebody did a cutting in February, March. They'll pot the things up and they'll sell them the following March, $12 plants. And that's a cheap wholesale price. If you go,
Yep.
So, you get your plants going, you do your prunings, you prune a plant, you got 14, 50, 80 cuttings, 10, 12, 15, $20 a pop.
Good argument for buying good plants right off the bat too, and buying the best plants from the best nurseries you can find. Don't go cheap. Don't get some banged up one from like local big box hardware store for the mother plants.
I have Frontenac. I forgot. I have Frontenac. I have Concord. I think I have a Muscadine. Yeah, but here's Concord, $16 at Starks.
And those are long-lived plants, man. Grapes.
Yeah. 100 years.
A grape can live hundreds of years depending on the variety.
Yeah. So yeah, do your pruning. Have your stuff ready. Have your stuff ready. Your rooting hormone and all that, and just get on it, man.
You know what I'm going to do when we get off this call? I'm going to go build a whole bunch of prop beds because I turned one of my garden blocks into a perennial bed this year, or started to. And I filled up one of the beds right away with
Mhm.
sticks, put hundreds and hundreds in there, and then overflowed into several hundred more pots. And thought, well, I need more. And I hate dealing with plants in pots, honestly. It gets so hot here in the summertime, and they can cook, or dry out. You're muted again, by the way. Your cat stepped on your mute button.
I muted
There
because
we go.
of the hammering and
Oh
whatever.
God, sorry.
The show must go on though.
Exactly.
When I
I've
say the
got
show, I mean the framing.
the framing must go on, and the chick gladiatorial battles must go on as well next to me. Right, prop bed. So I've got a bunch of old 2x6 lumber. I'm just going to double stack it. So I'll have a 11-inch tall bed,
Mhm.
and I've got some old weed cloth, and I already figured out where I'm going to put it next to my new perennial bed. And when I did the math, I was like, I could probably get about another 2,500, maybe 3,000 cuttings tucked in those beds. I've got peat moss. I just need to go get some sand. I'm going to do my own mix of perlite, peat moss, and sand. Because around here, I think we have, our humidity is usually in the like single digits
Yeah.
in the summertime. So humidity is not an issue where I live.
Sure.
But heat and moisture are, and we don't get rain. It'll stop raining come May, and then we won't see it again until October.
Jives.
Yeah. So I need something that's going to retain some moisture. And that's what the peat moss and the perlite will be for. And yeah, go down to my favorite local nursery and get the stuff I need from her, the little tidbits, and come back and get after it, because things are still not they haven't. Only the native Saskatoon, Serviceberry Saskatoon, same thing. Amelanchier alnifolia is just beginning. I think I was saying that last week too. The buds were beginning to break last week. This week they're now continuing with that their delightful twist, and now there's just a little glimpse of maybe like a 16th of an inch of green is poking up between the tip and the rest of the bud body. So spring is moving slowly but surely. It was 22 degrees last night.
Yeah, that's dope. Yeah, I'm done with hardwood cutting season. So
Yep.
at this point, I'm waiting for softwood cuttings, and yep, we'll get it done. We'll get it done. Couple words about prop beds. We said, they need to be 8 inches deep or more, maybe. Depends on what you're doing. But if you're going to do some of these grape varieties I'm doing, they need to be fairly deep, because I want 2 nodes in. One will get it. Two's twice as likely to get good germination. 3 is not 3 times as likely.
Right. It's too deep at that
too
point.
much.
Yep.
Yeah, the bottom node's too deep at that point. So you want them 8 inches deep or more. No pressure treated. I know they're going to be ground contact. I know they're going to be damp. You're just going to rot. Tough shit. But you don't want that arsenic and what is it, copper sulfate and all that crazy stuff that's in there around your plants. So I just happened to have a bunch of 2x8s that had been concrete forms around here. Construction. So that's what I'm using. They're ugly. They got concrete stuck to whatever. And I'm going to go. I've got some more of those, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'll be building some more beds. Coarse sand, masonry sand that you mix with your Portland to stick your bricks together with. Probably too fine. Probably not going to drain well enough around here.
That would count for like play sand is often how it's labeled too, correct?
Well, play sand is going to be coarser.
Oh, it is. Oh, okay.
Masonry sand is going to be fine. I don't remember the sieve sizes. You can go look this up. There are standards for these things. It's a fine sieve size. It's going to have a particle size of maybe no more than 1 millimeter. And, it's going to be, it's fine. You mix it with your Portland. That's going to be the stuff that you see in the joints between your bricks, between your cement blocks and so on. It's, it's a small particle size. Playground sand is going to be bigger. If you can find somebody that has coarse or sharp sand that has particle sizes up to like an 1/8 or 3/16, that might even be better. But that can be hard to find around here.
Play
Uh,
sand, I like that one. And you generally, I've noticed that play sand when I was looking for this, has been screened and washed. Some of them say sterilized. I don't know what that means. If that's heat, I'm hoping it's just heat.
that means if your
Um,
kid plays on them, they can never have children.
oh, well, they should probably put that as a warning on the label. Wait a minute. I think they might be doing this on purpose.
Billions must die.
Yes.
Yeah.
Big sand. I didn't even think about those guys.
So
Jeez.
then I wheelbarrow that stuff into my bed and I dump it in my bed and then I water it. Because, if we're going to make a sandcastle, you got to water it so the sand will stick together.
Sure.
And then I have an 8-inch drywall knife. And I stick that in there and I go to and fro. And now I made a perfectly straight little hole or ditch in my wet sand. And I take my cutting out of the rooting hormone and I stick it in there and I stick the next one in there. They're about an inch apart.
Oh, you do them that close?
Yep. And then
I
I
planted
get
mine at 4 inches apart. I had read recommendations of 4 inches. All right, got it. Dismissive head shake.
well, they're going to be,
Okay,
I'm going to have some roots that are tangled. I don't care. I'm trying to do thousands of these things. I'm putting them
sure,
under
in as little
mist,
space as possible. Yep.
So I open that up with my knife, stick them in there, and I just give it a little gentle karate chop on each side to close that. And then I just keep going. My rows are about 2 inches apart and the cuttings are about 1 inch to inch and a half apart within the row. There you go.
Okay. Yeah.
And when the
Cool.
time comes, we're just going to do an archaeological dig to dig that row out and get it potted up. But that's okay. Quite a bit of the sand will probably go in the potting medium. That's okay too. And we'll top that bed back off with
Sure.
some more sand, and we'll go right back into it next February, next March. You're not going to deplete the sand.
It's already there.
Yeah. In fact,
You can't deplete sand.
it's probably going to get richer. You're going to have litter and grass clippings and other things falling in it throughout the year. And at some point, cat poo, me poo.
Yep.
At some point, you dig it all
Right.
out of there and you throw it on your potting mix pile and refill it because it's actually getting richer over time. Potting mix is another big problem. That stuff is high dollar. Potting mix is not compost. It's not even good soil. It's selected mostly for its ability to drain.
Mhm.
And, that stuff's really high, and I have already made steps towards making my own potting mix. Because if you're going to be doing this at scale at all, you cannot be pissanting, 50-pound sacks of potting mix from the garden center at 12. Can't do it.
Recycled forest products is usually the first ingredient on those.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, that does not just mean sawdust and whatever from the mill. That also has, and I heard this from someone who works in the industry, that means like shredded old pallets that they just buy by the truckload and grind them up and throw them in the big mix. And I have found the occasional rusty nail mixed in mine, like a number 8 nail.
Yeah. So I'm working on mine. I have 40 cubic yards of hardwood bark mulch and coarse sand and some perlite, and I mix those things up as I need them, and that's my potting mix, and it's fine. The potting mix you find at your garden center is probably going to be hardwood bark or pine mulch, almost exclusively, and it'll have some sand in there. They will let it compost. Wood chips are too carbonaceous. The bark and the cambium is the nutrient blend, and the drainage ability of that is right where you need to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where do you make the cuts? Last technical question, I think. When you're doing your cuts on a hardwood, and I'm assuming you probably do this on softwood too, you make the bottom cut just below a bud node, and you make your top cut just above a bud node. Correct? Are there any exceptions to that you're aware of?
No, I cut about 1/4 of an inch below my bottom node, and it just so happens that the top node the top node will be the node below the bottom node on the next one.
Right.
So I just always cut a 1/4 inch below the bottom node, and then I have a longer tag above the top node.
Right. That's a good idea, because you sometimes too, that top one, as it's healing and dying back after a cut, this happens when you prune trees too. If you get too close, well, not even too, certainly if you get too close, but sometimes that top bud won't take, or that dieback that happens from the cut will go beyond that first bud that's closest to the cut, and then the plant's going to put its emphasis on the next bud down. So if you do leave a little bit of space, you leave room for that tip to dry out as it dies after it's cut. And then as the hormone in the plant's going to go into that bud, and then that's going to be your new king bud for the plant.
As far as pruning cuts, maybe, I don't know how we do a podcast about pruning. That's pretty tough. There's so much of that's visual and spatial. So, once you've made your pruning cut, you have a tag, right? A piece of grapevine or a blackberry cane. And then you make those cuts up by the nodes like we just described. But you need to do some learning a little bit before you start actually cutting the stuff off of particularly grapevines. They have basal nodes. They have nodes and shoots at the crotch of where a shoot emerges and from the trunk of the thing. And those basal nodes can make that thing, if you don't prune it properly, if you don't take the basal nodes out, it'll just you just end up with a super woolly grapevine, and it just becomes unmanageable. So you're going to prune black grapes much closer than you would a deciduous tree or something like that. So that's another thing. But read up on it.
Yeah, read up on it, do some research, and find find 6 plants, 10 plants, 12 plants, whatever it is. Even unless you are moving towards being a plant wizard, you're probably not going to have more than a few dozen varieties of plants growing on your place anyhow, from your yard to your homestead. And they're going to be an even smaller group that are the really important ones to you, that for whatever reason, those are the plants that make sense to you. Learn about those. Start with the ones that make sense. Start with the hardy ones, and just say, all right, I'm going to take like these 10 plants right here, and I'm going to know how to do them, and I'm going to do that really well. And then just start doing it. This is, again, my favorite, that small bite approach. Start with something that's manageable for you, whatever that happens to be, and do that, and then build off that success. Yeah. Before you know it, you'll be a maniac, and you'll have tens of thousands of cuttings scattered all over your property, and people will say, wow, look what's happened over there, and you will be the envy of the neighborhood.
Yeah, you say small bite approach, and you're not wrong, but I will say, though, the cuttings thing is a numbers game.
Sorry, by small bite, I meant varieties, not actual number of varieties. You might choose 6 plants, but you're still going to have 3,000 cuttings.
You need to do hundreds of cuttings.
Yeah, because the failure rate can be high in these. Yeah, it's easy too.
You put your knee pads on by your prop bed, and you take a knee, and you work them for 35 minutes, and the next thing you know, there's 700 cuttings in there. I mean, or 1,000 or whatever. That's fine. Do it, and water them in and walk off.
Yep, it is very, very fast.
Potting up day is not the same.
No.
Potting up day is a big deal, but that's fine. We came to play. But listen, if you're going to do several hundreds of cuttings or 1,000 cuttings or whatever, you need to know that there's a potting up day, or that you're going to sell them as bare root transplants. You need to figure out what the hell is going to happen, and you need to be ready. Like, okay, we're going to have 2,000 cuttings to pot up, rooted cuttings to pot up during the potting week or month or day. All right. What am I going to do about potting mix? And how am I going to do that economically? Or how am I even going to do it at all?
Where are you going to get the pots from?
I have 4,000 cuttings in a Nissan Sentra. Ruh-roh. Pots, so on. So, it's just like any other thing in this kind of gardening game. You got to be looking down the road and making sure that you're ready for when the crop comes in. Do you have enough canning jars? Do you have enough pots? Do you have enough potting mix, etc.? Do you have enough water?
Right.
Are you going to pot up 4,000 of these things, and then can you actually water them? But so be thinking about that. But um, don't let the problems of next spring mess you up this spring. I mean, go ahead and stick them. I'd rather you stuck them. I'd rather you stuck 1,000. We're only able to pot up 100 of them than you only stuck 100 because you were worried you wouldn't have enough soil or whatever. Just go ahead and do it.
Sounds good to me. Yeah, this is a time of heroes, man.
Mm.
It's time to just go for it and live like you mean it. It's always been that time, but I mean, yeah,
It's extra. It's extra that time.
it is extra that time. Speaking of extra that time,
Mm.
incandescent bulbs, that's finally going to happen. Those delightful little things are going to be banned for sale come August of this year. That's right, everybody. Buy all the incandescent bulbs you can right now because the stupid LED is finally going to displace them. A bulb of glass, tungsten steel, a touch of brass, maybe a little tin in there filled with argon, nothing toxic, breaks right down. Boom. I get it. It takes a little electricity. So don't leave the damn thing on all the time and don't run a 150-watt bulb. Instead, they're being replaced with a bulb that is plastic except for the contact on the bottom. It's full of rare earth materials and it's toxic. None of it's going to break down. And it's just going to sit in the landfill, wherever that happens to be, and just leach slow moving death for countless eons.
Mm.
And they suck in the meantime. I hate LED bulbs.
Hmm.
The
Big deal.
frequency makes me edgy. The flicker is easy to see and it's not good for me. It's not good for anyone. I don't like them. So there.
Yeah. Things were so
Burn
much
under my
better before the
saddle.
smoking ban.
Yeah. Oh, the before times.
The before times. Well, there's
Whatever.
that. Free plants, everybody. Free
Free
plants.
plants.
Yeah, you want a bunch of trees? Don't be afraid to go look and do some research and find acorns. Like,
Mhm.
I don't mean like picking them up on your place, though you can do that. There's nothing in the world wrong with that. You can buy them from somebody who knows what the hell they are, and you can put them out and you can sprout them and you can pot them up, and then you can run your own tree nursery. You don't have to go down to the you know East Dallas Garden Center or whatever and pay $78 a piece for water oaks in a 4-gallon pot. That's ridiculous. You don't have to do that.
I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you want any of those plants I mentioned or want to hear about any of the other goodies that we'll be selling here, we're gonna have big time honey. And it'll sell out real fast. We'll have honey come June. It'll sell out. Got about 50 more chickens available for sale, pre-sale. Those will be people will be able to take delivery of those starting in June through I think the 4th week of July. Whatever. You can email Scott at scotthambrick.com, or you can go to scotthambrick.com and scroll down to the bottom and get on my little mailing list. And when we start moving some of these things, I'll let you know. Yeah.
And if you want someone to help you grow things and figure out how to design your place or get your gardens going or whatever it happens to be, you can find me at growingresilience.co. That is .co. And email is gr.permaculture@gmail.com. And if you want to get a hold of the show, grpodcast @tutanota.com. TUTANOTA. And I've forgotten to mention this 3 weeks in a row. There is another guide up, a free guide at the Growing Resilience website. This one is about planting perennial plants. This ties in with our conversation today quite well. So if you go to the site and ask, or just go to the guide, say request a free guide, it will send an email to me and I will happily send the perennial planting guide to you. Perennials of all sorts, bushes and trees.
Excellent. Yeah, perennials are where it's at.
Yeah.
Greens. I mean, look, you got to have your potatoes. You got to have your stuff that has starch content and carbohydrates in them. Tomatoes. I mean, we like them, but you could eat 10,000 pounds of tomatoes a day and starve to death.
Man, that would be a terrible way to starve to death too. There are other plants I'd rather eat to starve on.
Yeah, I mean, most of the annuals that we grow, you would actually starve to death on.
Sure.
Potatoes, sweet potatoes, turnips. There are things that are calorie dense that are important, but a lot of the calories that you want are more easily had in the perennial world. And the perennials are so good. Like that's lazy man's gardening right there.
And yet you hate the food forest.
Yeah, it's disorderly. It's it's disorderly. It's grotesque. It's not good. Yeah, it's not. It's not a forest.
You're right. It's not. It's just food.
It's just a sloppy mess.
Sla-
People
Sloppy
have a good
garden.
feeling. They call it forest. It seems more natural to them. I'm like, I kind of like rows because I have to water shit.
Sure.
Yeah, trying to manage things.
Manage. How about steward?
Husbandry. You can call it whatever you want, but I mean,
Sure.
we're making decisions that drive the production. And
Right.
we have X amount of land, we have X amount of water, we have X amount of time, and it requires decision making and judgment.
Yep.
I'm going to do that.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah. So, hey, sorry about the construction noise in the background, everybody. We're moving Charity's 87-year-old granddad in, and we need to be in a hurry to do that. So you say, why couldn't we stop? Well, because I tell you what, he didn't buy green bananas, and we ain't got time to not hurry up and get this done because, yeah, we need to get his ass up here. So
Clock's ticking.
me even taking off the time to come and record this is at loggerheads with our goal and getting good old Haskell up here under our care. So there's that. We'll do another show next week, and I don't know what we're going to talk about.
I don't either. I'll bet we come up with something.
I'm sure we will.
Man.
Well, there you go. Hey, leave a review. Remember, it's PG-13. Also, remember, billions must die, and that you should stick thousands and not hundreds of cuttings, and you don't have enough potting soil. What else?
Anything and everything you need right now, you should go get it. If you have tools that you need to get, go spend the money right now, get those tools. Yeah, live like your life depends on it.
There you go. You only get one. All right.
Yep.
Talk to you all in another week.
Take care.